All right, continuing our little series on short videos on the abortion topic. We started it actually before the whole Roe vs. Wade business began, providentially, but it's going on now, so we're going to keep doing some more videos as it's on the mind of everyone, basically. But what we're looking at today is an exciting one. It's the passage that is pointed to by pro-choice advocates most often. I'm saying that from my own research in the scholarly materials, and also just from YouTube searches and of sort of normal everyday atheists or atheist channels, whatever it is, that this is the verse that is used most often in reference to abortion to say the Bible is pro-choice, the Bible is not against abortion, etc. It's often used very condescendingly, and people use it as if saying things like, "Well, Christians, you don't even know your Bible as good as we do. You don't even know that the Bible is pro-abortion," and they'll point to this passage. And this passage, of course, is Numbers chapter 5, verses 11 through 31. Numbers 5, 11 through 31. Now, we're not going to read the whole passage. I encourage you to do that, but for time's sake, we're not going to do that. But let me tell you what's going on in the passage and the way that this passage is used. What's occurring here is a man is not sure if his wife has been faithful to him, thinks that potentially his wife has been unfaithful to him and slept with another man. And so what has been told to do for him is to bring his wife to the priest, and the priest would give the woman what's called bitter water or bitter drink to drink, and the woman would drink that bitter water. And the pro-choice advocate will say that what's going on here is a forced abortion, that this woman has become with child apparently, and she has been being made to drink this drink, which will cause an abortion of the child that she has conceived. And so obviously God is not against abortion, because there's at least some circumstances where abortion is encouraged. We had this occasion where this woman is brought forth in front of the priest, is forced to drink this water, which will cause an abortion. And so God is not against abortion. He in fact commanded it in the Old Testament for it to be done, for it to be accomplished. So that's the basics here. One of the key verses to kind of sum it up is verse 27, which says, "When he," that's the priest, "has made her," that is the woman who potentially has been committed adultery, "drink the water, then if she has defiled herself," if she's guilty, "and has broken faith with her husband, the water that brings the curse," significant language, "the water that brings the curse shall enter into her and cause bitter pain, and her womb shall swell, and her thigh shall fall away, and the woman shall become a curse among her people." Now, that language is a little odd, right? Because we don't use that kind of language. Your womb shall swell and your thigh shall fall away. But it's generally agreed that this is an idiom that's referring to something happening with the womb negatively, or the reproduction negatively. The word thigh is used throughout the Old Testament euphemistically for reproductive parts of the man and the woman. So we have this idea of something to do with reproduction being cursed, being some sort of harm or negative thing occurring here with the womb and with the thigh falling away. So we don't know exactly what's going on there. What we do know is something is happening with the womb and with reproduction in response to this woman's potential sin. Okay, to drink this bitter drink and to see if she was guilty or not, and the punishment that would come from that. Okay, so the pro-choice side takes this passage and says God is forcing an abortion, causing an abortion, and is therefore not against abortion. Okay, here's the problems with this line of thinking. Number one, no baby's mentioned here. Right? There's no mention of a baby here in the English or in the Hebrew. There's no indication this woman is indeed pregnant. There's no talk of a baby being aborted, a baby being miscarried, a baby that is there at all. There's no talk of a baby. So it's an assumption that is unfounded to say that there's even a baby in the picture here. Secondly, neither of the Hebrew words for miscarriage or the loss of a life in the womb is used here. Okay, so there are two words that are used in Jewish language for miscarriage, and neither one is used here. For a baby dying in the womb, neither one is used here. We have no indication a baby is even mentioned here. And then on top of that, neither of the words in Hebrew for miscarriage are even used. What is likely in mind, most scholars believe, is barrenness. That seems to be the punishment, not miscarriage or abortion, but barrenness, the inability to have children. The next verse after the one we read, verse 28, says, "But if the woman has not defiled herself," and is clean, then she shall be free and shall conceive children. Right? So if you just use sort of reasoning here, reasoning backwards, what is the punishment then? If she is not guilty, she will be able to conceive children. So it's natural to think that if she is guilty, the opposite of that will be the punishment. If she is guilty, she will not be able to conceive children. That is, she will be barren. She'll be made barren. She will not be able to conceive future children. It's not talking about anything about some alleged child that is in her currently. It's talking about her ability to conceive. And so if she is guilty of the sin of adultery, then her womb will be closed, if you will. She will not be able to produce children in the future, which is commonly referred to as a curse, that women were considered to be cursed if they couldn't have children. So we have this curse language here in Numbers 5 used repetitively because it's this idea that's consistent with the Old Testament that she is becoming barren as a response to her sin, that she is cursed, will be seen as one who is cursed in response to her sin. And that curse, not being the loss of a child, but being the inability to conceive children in the future. So it's probably that barrenness is in mind as opposed to miscarriage or abortion. And then fourthly, and maybe most significantly, even if there is miscarriage or abortion in mind here, which I think is a tough case to make. There's no baby mentioned, all those reasons we talked about. Even if miscarriage or abortion is in mind here, this is a big deal. This would be God acting as God, taking the life that he created, not a woman activating her right to choose. What is here is what's referred to as divine prerogative, the prerogative of the Creator. That is, God has the prerogative to take life whenever he liked to. He is God, after all. He is the one who gave life. Job 12, verse 10, in his hand, it's God's hand, is the life of every living thing, and the breath of all mankind. All of them are in the hand of God. Job 34, if God should set his heart to it and gather to himself his spirit and his breath, all flesh would perish together, and man will return to dust. If God so decided, he could just stop giving life and life would cease to be. God doesn't even have to take life away. He just has to stop giving it. That God is the giver of all life, the giver of every breath. That if he so decided, he would just take that breath away, and he could do so as the Creator, as God, and life would cease to be. Psalm 104:29, when you take away their breath, they die and return to their dust. Acts 17:25, he gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. God is the giver of life. This is a really significant point to be made in this discussion because it responds to a lot of the pro-choice arguments, which say things like this. Well, God commanded abortion, even though he didn't. Or God killed all the firstborn in Egypt. So obviously God's not against this thing. Or God didn't stop Herod from killing all the babies in Jesus' time. So obviously God's not against killing babies. That's crazy, right? And it doesn't deal with this reality that if God exists, right, which the Christian obviously believes that he does, and the one who's making a biblical argument would think that he does, then he is the creator, the sustainer of all life, and he is the only one who has a sort of prerogative that can take life away. So miscarriages are God's prerogative. Abortion is the mother taking the child's life of her own accord, right? The prerogative of the creation, which is not the same as the prerogative of the Creator. So even if in Numbers 5, what's in view is God commanding abortion, which again, I don't think that it is, but even if it was, what we'd have there is an example of divine prerogative, of the Creator acting as the Creator, which is nowhere close to what we have in abortion, where one creation takes the life of the other creation. We do not have the same prerogative as God. This is yet another evidence of how uncomfortable we are with allowing God to be God and us not being God. So this passage, which is the number one passage that people go to try to argue that the Bible is for abortion, is not even a very good argument, right? It's not a strong passage to try to argue that the Bible is for abortion, for the reasons that we've listed, right? No baby is mentioned here. There's no proof the woman is even pregnant. Secondly, neither of the words used for miscarriage or the loss of the baby in the womb is used in Hebrew. Thirdly, it seems much more clear that logically barrenness is in view, the inability to conceive children in the future, than miscarriage or abortion. And fourthly, even if it were miscarriage or abortion, all we have here is God acting as God, not a woman exercising her right to choose. Very different. Love you, church. Talk to you soon.